So how can we help produce positive effects and resistance training in both strength and hypertrophy, improve the quality and benefits of HIIT training, improve on aerobic endurance and performance, and produce positive effects on not only strength and power but fat-free mass, daily living performance, and improving neurological function in both young and elderly people? Well, we take creatine monohydrate. In 1832, Michael Chevrel isolated creatine from basified water extract of skeletal muscle. And by 1912, Harvard University researchers Otto Folin and Willie Dennis found that by ingesting creatine, we can dramatically boost the total creatine content of the muscle, which our body is able to store, making supplementation of creatine much more beneficial when it's not excreted. Once it's taken exogenously, creatine phosphate, a buffer used to convert ADP back into ATP, which is our cell's energy currency, was found, and by the late 1920s it was discovered that creatine is a key player in metabolism of skeletal muscle. From then on, creatine became a go-to supplement in the fitness and exercise world. Creatine is produced endogenously at an amount of about 1 gram per day in young adults. Our bodies will typically store creatine and phosphocreatine. What's phosphocreatine? Well, it's creatine's byproduct, and synthesis occurs in the liver, kidneys, and to a lesser extent, the pancreas. It's transported through the blood and taken up by our tissues with high energy demands, such as skeletal muscle, in our case, and even the brain. Alright, let's get a little nerdy. During times of increased energy demands, such as exercise and fitness, the phosphagen, or the byproduct of ATP to PCR, system rapidly resynthesizes ATP from ADP, which is our cell's energy currency, with the use of phosphocreatine. Phosphocreatine, if you recall, is creatine's byproduct, and is a phosphorylated creatine molecule, PCR, and serves as an energy reservoir for the rapid buffering and regeneration of ATP through a reversible reaction with the enzyme creatine kinase. What's creatine kinase? Creatine kinase is an enzyme that generates ATP from PCR and ADP. Creatine has the ability to increase muscle stores of PCR, the phosphocreatine. This potentially increases the muscle's ability to resynthesize ATP from ADP to meet increased energy demands, such as our case, working out in the gym. Creatine supplementation also appears to increase the number of myonuclei that satellite cells will donate to damaged muscle fibers, which increases the potential for growth of those fibers. This increase in myonuclei probably stems from creatine's ability to increase the levels of the myogenic transcription factor MRF4. But let's back up a bit. Endogenous serum or plasma creatine concentrations in healthy adults are normally in a range of 2 to 12 milligrams per liter. A single dose that you would find in a creatine monohydrate supplement and from any supplement store would suggest 5 grams or 5,000 milligram oral dose in healthy adults. This would result in a peak plasma creatine level of approximately 120 grams per liter at 1 to 2 hours post-ingestion. Creatine has a short elimination half-life, however, ranging just less than 3 hours. So to maintain an elevated plasma level, it would be necessary to take small oral doses every 3 to 6 hours throughout the day. After the first initial loading dose phase, which typically looks like 1 to 2 weeks, 12 to 25 grams per day, it is no longer necessary to maintain a consistently high serum level of creatine. As with most supplements, each person has their own genetic preset amount of creatine they can hold, and the rest is eliminated as waste. A typical post-loading dose is about 2 to 5 grams throughout the day. In general, it is accepted that glycogen-depleting exercises such as high-intensity or long-duration exercises should combine high-carbohydrate diets with creatine supplementation to achieve heightened muscle glycogen stores. And this was shown in a 2007 article where greater improvements in 1-rep maxes and lean body mass were found in trained young males when resistance training was combined with a multi-nutrient supplement containing 0.1 gram per kilogram per day of creatine and a 1.5 gram per kilogram per day of creatine and carbohydrates carbohydrate. This was compared with protein alone or a protein carbohydrate supplement without the use of creatine. A loading dose was used in this controlled group of 20 grams per day, followed by a maintenance dose of 3 to 5 grams throughout the day. In another article in 2008, a control group was given a creatine program of 25 grams per day for 7 days, followed by a 6 gram per day throughout the day for 8 weeks, and showed an increase in intramuscular IGF-1 content by 67%. There were no differences in IGF-1 between vegetarians and non-vegetarians, and these findings indicate that creatine supplementation during resistance exercise training increases intramuscular IGF-1 concentration in healthy men and women, independent of habitual dietary routines. So with the potential benefits and upsides of creatine, there has to be some negative side effects as well, right? Well, there have been a few isolated anecdotal reports of negative side effects such as potential muscle cramps, strains, pulls, upset stomach, diarrhea, dizziness, potential decreased sexual function, and hair loss, and the most typical, gain in water weight. But there appears to be no credible evidence challenging its safety. Although there have been a few reported renal health disorders associated with creatine supplementation. There are isolated reports in which recommended dosages are not followed, or there is a history of previous health complaints such as renal disease or those taking nephrotoxic medications that are toxic to the kidneys, which are aggravated by creatine monohydrate supplementation. Specific studies into creatine supplementation, renal function, and/or safety conclude that although creatine does slightly raise creatinine levels, there is no progressive effect to cause negative consequences to renal function and health in already healthy individuals when proper dosage recommendations are followed. And it was observed by Cornelissen and colleagues that the effects of 1-week loading protocol of 5 gram per day dosages of creatine monohydrate followed by a 3-month maintenance period of just 5 grams per day on cardiac patients involved in an endurance and exercise training program did not show significantly enhanced performance in these patients, but the markers of renal and liver function were within normal ranges, indicating the safety of the applied creatine supplementation protocol given to these cardiac patients. There is one caveat to all the negatives, and while the long-term effects of creatine supplementation still remain unclear, respectfully, it is to note that creatine supplementation has been shown to reduce body's endogenous production of creatine, that 1 gram per day that we noted. However, levels return to normal after a brief period of time when supplementation ceases. Despite this, creatine supplementation has not been studied or supplemented with for a relatively long period of time, 5, 10, or even 20 years, and due to this, long-term effects aren't quite known. Therefore, safety cannot fully be guaranteed. Well guys, that's going to be all for this video. If you liked the video, make sure you leave it a like. If you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ding that notification bell so you're updated anytime I upload any more videos over health and nutrition. And stay tuned for the next video. I'll be taking a look at why you shouldn't drink a glass of prune juice before you go work out.